workshop on investing in the SDGs through South-South and triangular cooperation beyond COVID-19, promoting conducive policy, enabling business and legal environment, and integration in the Arab states region. This webinar is under the patronage of His Excellency Dr. Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain, organized by the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation and United Nations Development Program in partnership with the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research Think Tank Network, MENAPAR TTN, within the South-South Global Thinkers Initiative. This webinar will span across the coming 3 days. Arabic and English interpretation is available. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving SDGs requires $2 to 3 trillion additional investment annually, according to estimates before the pandemic. With the ongoing COVID-19 crisis threatens to erase some of the important achievements and milestones that countries have made in achieving the SDGs, we will need even more rigorous global investment, more significant reforms of financial regulations and institutions, and strengthened coordination of public and private sectors in financing for sustainable development. South-South foreign direct investment in recent years accounted for about 1/3 of the global investment flows, while South-South trade had increased 7-fold since the mid-90s. Trade and investment had been clearly recognized as important modalities of South-South cooperation at the second UN high-level conference on South-South cooperation. So across Global South, recently, we have seen very strong regional integration efforts, sub-regional mechanisms, neighborhood countries take initiatives to improve policy and legal and business environment for more and better investment between developing countries, with active engagement of multilateral, bilateral, public, and private partnerships. So this regional workshop offers an important opportunity to learn about such initiatives, knowledge, and insights from the Arab state region, open dialogues among government officials, regional leaders, private sector, IFIs, and think tanks, and academia, to identify challenges, good opportunities, and most importantly, explore cooperation opportunities in policy and legal areas that can facilitate more and better South-South investment for sustainable development and for a strong recovery from the COVID pandemic. With that in mind, it gives me great honor to invite His Excellency Abdullah bin Faisal bin Jabba Al Dosari, the Assistant Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain, to deliver opening remarks on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Microphone.
Thank you very much for this introduction and for asking me to deliver my remarks opening today. Your Excellency Adil Abdulatif, Director of United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, Your Excellency Stefano Pentinato, I think he is with us or he is not with us, Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program in the Kingdom of Bahrain, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, very good afternoon from Bahrain. On behalf of His Excellency Dr. Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Minister of Foreign Affairs, today, and it is with a great pleasure that I welcome you all to the investing in the SDGs through South-South and triangular cooperation beyond COVID-19 virtual workshop. It is with thanks This workshop is co-organized by the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation and the United Nations Development Programme in partnership with the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research think tank network and hosted by the Bahrain Institute of Public Administration. I am honored to be part of this fundamental initiative, which I am confident will play an impactful role in facilitating favorable discussion on a greater South-South investment in the region and amid the current pandemic. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for choosing to focus on the topic that is significant to growth of both local Bahraini and regional economy. The Kingdom of Bahrain views foreign investment as a crucial part of its economy vision 2030 long-term plan for developing the economy and its competitiveness. The workshop topics also focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, which are a primary focus area for the government and leading example of our shared interest with the United Nations offices. The focus on the South-South cooperation is also beneficial for collective growth with the opportunities for the cooperations in various fields. It is with that in mind that we hope to witness a positive effect on the region fueled by the discussion planned for these 3 days. And as I speak to you all today through a screen, the current effect of the pandemic are apparent. However, the launch of this remote workshop also proves how cooperatives, efforts, and innovations can help us thrive past challenges in a time when barriers exist. We are currently in unprecedented time in light of the current pandemic, and discussion need to be facilitated to address and minimize the existing and future challenges. The region is not immune to the effect of the pandemic, as the initial estimates of the United Nations Economic and Social Development for Western Asia warned that the Arab region could lose at least $42 billion and face a rise in unemployment rates following the outbreak. Such unfortunate predictions only further prove the significance of this workshop as we strive to find solutions to keep our people and economies protected while promoting a collaborative environment. While our region has its own challenges, by looking at global initiatives, it will be surely benefits us to gain a broader understanding of how to move forward. The upcoming discussions are necessary to support regional economies, considering the drawbacks of the COVID-19 pandemic that has swept through various nations on a global scale. It is through such discussion that we will be able to develop suitable business and legal environment that can further promote investments in the Arab region and be prepared for upcoming and existing challenges. Given the current situation, a coordinated effort is required, and therefore the workshop is successful in bringing in various players in the region as well as globally to discuss and tackle the subject. Furthermore, the Kingdom of Bahrain sees the role of academic, research, and scientific institution as key stakeholder in bringing and being able to inform decision makers in how most sustainable strategies to employ. With this end, I would like to thank the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research, MENAPAR, for their continuous support and contribution to the efforts in Bahrain and the region. As I conclude my opening remarks, I leave you all today with one question. How can we today discussions and the research that will follow be a success story for other nations and region to use to champion their own economies beyond the pandemic? I wish you all participants every success in this workshop, and I look forward to witnessing further discussion fueled by the workshop in the near future. I thank you for your attention. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Dasseri, for your inspiring remarks and question at the end, assuring us of the timely importance of the subject and the strong potential of partnership within and with the region. Thank you very much for highlighting coordination, cooperation, and innovation as the key. And thank you for your leadership vision and support. I'm sure this will start a webinar in a very successful beginning. Thank you very much. Now I have the pleasure, very pleased to invite Mr. Adel Abdelatif, Director Interim of the United Nations Office for South.
Thank you, Grace. Good afternoon, good morning. Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah bin Faisal bin Jabr al-Dawsari, Assistant Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain. My dear friend and colleague, Khalid Abdel Shafi, Deputy Director of the Regional Bureau for Arab States at UNDP. And my dear friend and colleague, Stefano Pitinato, Resident Representative of UNDP at the Kingdom of Bahrain. And my dear friend, Raed bin Shams, President of the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research Think Tank Network, and also President of the Bahrain Institute of Public Administration. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you to the virtual Arab Region workshop jointly organized by the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation and the United Nations Development Program in partnership with the Middle East and North Africa Public Administration Research Think Tank Network on investing in the SDGs through South-South and triangular cooperation beyond COVID-19. Let me first express our deep appreciation to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Kingdom of Bahrain for their patronage over this event. This event is one of the priority areas of the South-South Global Thinkers, a coalition of think tanks networks for South-South cooperation. It is a joint initiative between the United Nations Office for the South-South Cooperation and UNDP that was launched in 2017. Under the South-South Global Thinkers, our office with UNDP have organized similar workshops in Asia, Africa, and Europe. This event focuses on the theme of promoting conducive policy, enabling business and legal environment, and integration in the Arab States region. Let me, at the outset, also give you a brief background of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, which, since its establishment, was hosted by UNDP. Its role is to promote, coordinate, and support South-South and triangular cooperation globally and within the UN system. The office has recently been coordinating the first inter-agency action plan of the whole UN system-wide South-South cooperation strategy, which will further enhance the coordination of UN organizations to support South-South and triangular cooperation. The office is also the knowledge hub providing advisory and consulting services to all stakeholders on South-South and triangular cooperation. Last year in Buenos Aires, the second high-level UN conference on South-South cooperation took place after 40 years of the first one that took place in 1978. The outcome document of the conference recognized the contribution of think tanks and research institutions to the improvement of South-South and triangular cooperation practices. Our office, in collaboration with UNDP, will continue strengthening the sharing of knowledge and research on South-South cooperation in partnership with the think tank communities and academia to advance thought leadership and produce evidence-based research to inform policy dialogues and decision-making on South-South cooperation in the context of sustainable development. In addition to the South-South, we have also the South-South Galaxy. These two initiatives, in fact, support and focus on the coordinating, creating, and sharing knowledge and partnership brokering. The objective of the South-South Global Thinkers is to provide an enabling environment to fill the knowledge gap in South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation to enable its impact at scale for the achievement of the SDGs. This is done through the pooling of over 250 think tanks across the Global South. It has sought to inform global policy dialogues and agenda setting on South-South cooperation and inform policymakers and development practitioners on the value of South-South cooperation with the goal to accelerate the progress toward the SDGs. South-South Global Thinkers is a global and cross-regional initiative. Under this framework, similar workshops, as I said, have been organized in other regions. The objective of our regional workshop in Arab states is to identify challenges and good practices in policy and legal areas that can facilitate better South-South investment for sustainable development while scoping the impacts of COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to significant social and economic impacts across the world and has created particular difficulties in many Arab countries. Arab states have shown increasing support for South-South cooperation in this context, and in responding to and recovering from the COVID-19, the Arab states also have offered good practices and knowledge. We expect to learn more about these good practices and knowledge generated from this region when achieving SDGs, responding to and recovering from the pandemic. What do we expect from this event and what are the follow-ups? First, the discussions and outcome of the event will feed into the formulation of a research agenda that aims to inform better policy making, to promote and strengthen investment policies. Second, the end product is the development of a comprehensive research on South-South trade, investment, and regional integration, which compiles inputs from previous similar South-South investment workshops held jointly by UNDP and our office in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America. Finally, the event will contribute to the development of a repository of financing mechanisms that exist in the region, which aims to facilitate partnerships between governments, development partners, IFIs, academia, civil society, and think tanks to support more SDGs aligned to public policies. This can also be supported through the utilization of South Galaxy, a digital knowledge sharing partnership brokering platform enabling knowledge exchange and dialogues. Finally, I believe that the benefits and challenges discussed during the event can help in highlighting areas of cooperation. Particular areas of interest can be also defined for research and collaboration to further advance the regional cooperation. I wish for all the participants a fruitful event ahead. And also I would like to thank again the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bahrain for its partnership, and also our dear colleague Raed for his continuous collaboration with our office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdelatif, for introducing the office and the platforms we work together with partners in promoting, connecting, creating, sharing, and most importantly, applying Southern research and knowledge, and also assured us the concrete follow-up actions so that the question raised at the beginning can really be addressed in a practical and strategic manner. Our discussion today can then be translated into messages for better policymaking and better actions and stronger South-South cooperation partnership on financing for SDGs. Thank you very much. Now I have the honor to invite Mr. Khalid Abdel Safi, Deputy Director AI of the Regional Bureau for Arab States of UNDP, to provide opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Grace. Good morning to colleagues in New York and afternoon to colleagues in the region. Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah bin Faisal Al-Dosari, Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain. Dear colleague and friend, Dr. Raed bin Shams, President of MENAPAR and the Bahrain Institute for Public Administration. Dear colleague and friend, Dr. Adel Abdel Latif, Director of the UN South-South Cooperation Office, and also my colleague Stefano, Acting UN Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in Bahrain. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to express gratitude and appreciation for the Kingdom of Bahrain and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for hosting this virtual event, and to thank our partners and colleagues in the UN Office of South-South and the MENAPAR network for this partnership in this event. When it comes to UNDP, dear colleagues, our role goes beyond, of course, supporting and hosting the UN Office of South-South Collaboration. This issue is really anchored, the importance of the South-South cooperation is anchored in our strategic plan as UNDP. It's one of the core ways of working at all levels of the organization. In 2016, UNDP launched its corporate strategy on South-South, which defines several areas of collaboration, and on the margins of the BAPA and Plus 40 conference in 2019, UNDP launched its renewed commitment to building South-South cooperation capacity and helping harness Southern development solutions for achieving the SDGs. And in this spirit, the Regional Bureau for Arab States addresses challenges and opportunities shared across all or some Arab countries that cannot be tackled at the national level alone, but require multi-country interventions and collaboration, such as in areas of trade, climate change, human security, anti-corruption, just to mention few examples. UNDP's comparative advantage resides in the way in which it complements country programs, and as you know, we are present in over 140 countries in the world, by scaling up successful initiatives at the country level through regional platforms and networks that enable peer-to-peer exchanges and South-South cooperation on primary development issues that are of interest to various countries due to their particular relevance. In addition to that, and as a substantive knowledge partner capable of influencing policy in most strategic areas for the governments in the region, UNDP consolidates a knowledge base that promotes research, analysis, data gathering, and dissemination, enabling evidence-based policymaking and knowledge exchanges in our region and beyond it. Ladies and gentlemen, historically, the Arab states have shown increasing support for South-South cooperation, indicated by the creation of several regional and multilateral channels of cooperation. Just to mention few, of course, the Arab League, the GCC Council, the Maghreb Union, and the African Union Regional Economic Communities. More than 80% of the region's South-South cooperation has involved other Arab states through bilateral, regional, or multilateral channels, flowing mostly to middle income and least developed countries in the region. For example, the North African middle-income countries of Tunisia, Morocco, and Egypt are among the top destinations of South-South cooperation initiatives provided by the Arab states. South-South in the Arab states is mostly facilitated through public-private partnerships, of course, but also through specialized funds. And here I can mention the Islamic Development Fund, of course, and the Arab Monetary Fund, Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, the OPEC Fund, and the Kuwait Fund, of course, and others. And it's worth mentioning that the high-income Gulf countries in the region have played a significant role in South-South cooperation, and they have provided substantial financial contributions to least developed countries, but also and specifically to conflict-affected countries, offsetting by that the waning in official development assistance to the region. However, ladies and gentlemen, despite of all this progress made, the potential for South-South cooperation in the Arab states remains largely untapped. And this is a reality that we have to admit in our discussions over the days. The region is one of the world's least globally and regionally integrated region in the world. Has one of the world's lowest levels of FDI, and share of total global exports of non-oil goods is under 2%. Intra-regional trade among the Arab states countries is also very low at 10% only. So all of that, of course, among all of that came the COVID crisis, compounded with the crisis, the drop in oil, the dramatic drop in oil crisis that made this pandemic that started initially as a health crisis, but slowly developed into a very harsh socio-economic and development crisis, in my opinion, with all its implications, and speakers before me have hinted to different indicators and falls that were caused by COVID. So in view of all of those challenges and the unprecedented times, South-South among Arab states is really important for the region's long-term economic growth and for the achievements of the SDG, especially when it comes to middle income and least developed countries, as well as fragile countries. And unfortunately, our region is full of fragility and countries that are undergoing crisis. South-South presents to us an opportunity, and we have to use it to build forward better through regional integration in support of innovation, competition, and according to the principle of leaving no one behind. There is a lot to be said in this area, of course, but I think it's more important to listen to the experts during the sessions. So I really, and I'm sure, dear colleagues and friends, that you are going to touch upon the areas mentioned and other areas during the discussions and during the different sessions. So at the end, I really wish you all the success, and I'm looking forward together with my colleagues to the outcome of this important forum. So good luck and all the best to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Safi, for sharing with us UNDP's strategic approach and strong actions in the region supporting South-South cooperation, and sharing with us the trend and greater potential of South-South cooperation in the context of COVID-19 impact. And we really appreciate the strong partnership with UNDP. Thank you very much. Now, let me have the honor, last but not least, to invite Dr. Raed bin Shams, the Director General of Bahrain Institute of Public Administration, BEPA, and the President of MENAPAR Think Tank Network, our partner who supported the organization of our event and one of our champions for South-South Global Thinkers Initiative. So, Dr. bin Shams, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Grace. Allow me, please, just to give, rather than a speech, it's just some thoughts that can probably look into this issue of investment from a different angle. Layman people in the street would say the following probably. Once upon a time, we were ruling nations across the world. Once upon a time, we were ruling seas across the oceans. Once upon a time, we got stuck in the past world and sunk in the oceans. Complacency, loss of vision, downgrading our real priorities, the priorities of our nations, and focusing on the priorities of our individuals. The question is not what we are or what we were. The question is, what would we aspire to be? Your Excellencies, delegates and colleagues, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are gathering to discuss a tiny issue, but an essential component for our way forward. We are here to discuss how we can take this investment in the Arab world forward to serve the sustainable development goals, not for themselves, but to serve our region, the Arab world. The workshop would not feed into this big purpose if we are still stuck in the past. There are great exemplars of good practices across the region, yet we need a unified direction to unite us. The SDGs can serve in unifying us if we take them on board as such. The discussions in this workshop are essential to formulate our bigger picture. I'm sure most of you would say, Raed, this purpose thing is beyond our scope, our boundaries, our abilities. We are small people. Yet we all agree that we still can control ourselves, our aspirations, and influence to a certain extent our families, neighborhoods, communities, and localities. So if we have that, let's shift the thinking from the top down to bottom up also. SDGs 17, partnership, multilateralism, should start from within our families, neighborhoods, communities, localities, and countries before extending to the Arab world and beyond the world there. This partnership will work and will only be useful and solid if it is based on concrete know-how. If it is informed by knowledge, boosted by innovation, and governed by our noble Arab values, which we sometimes abandon in search for individual short-term gains. Otherwise, we will fall back to our individualities and isolations. And we will easily be broken like the individual sticks. So let us all join hands, minds, and hearts for this workshop and beyond. Can we use this workshop as a starting point, as a launching pad? Use it to start from our grassroots and by us as individuals before countries to pay our dues in the investment marathon. Is it possible? Well, crowdsourcing and fund sourcing are all available tools within our domains, just to name a few. Those of us who cannot contribute financially for our bigger purpose, then please contribute with us through your know-how, promotion, and moral support to institutions like the MENAPAR network, which we have been carrying the flag forward with no dedicated resources whatsoever. a word of gratitude and big applause for those who believe in what can be done from nothing and by nothing. Thank you, MENAPAR. Thank you, UN Office for South-South Cooperation. Thank you, UNDP. Thank you, BIPA. Thank you, my colleague, Your Excellency, Abdullah Dosari, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with all the support we are getting through the years. And thank you for all contributing with us today, for no personal gains except to have the Arab region flourish again and lead with dignity. This way we can together move forward and even fall forward rather than backward, and confidently, because we are not alone. And to view all what will be discussed in a brighter landscape of possibilities, opportunities, and successes. Looking forward to discussing today, networking tomorrow, and boarding together on the shuttle to collective prosperous Arab world. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. bin Shams. Thank you. Well, for emphasizing our vision of global partnership, with that, achieving SDGs wouldn't be a real challenge. It's ambitious, but it's achievable. You talked about the concept of networked and inclusive multilateralism, and the spirit of that, the same as the spirit of South-South cooperation, starts from home. Thank you very much for the inspiration. And I'm sure with that, our discussion in the following 3 days will really become a building block for a better connected world and a better future. Thank you so much. And now, with this inspirational opening remarks panel, we would like to move on to the substantive discussion. I would like to invite Mr. Zanfer Ismailabey, Regional Chief of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation's Division for Arab States, Europe, and CIS regions, to open and moderate the first session of the workshop on South-South investment for SDGs, global, regional, and country change experiences and perspectives. I would like to say a big thank you to the opening panel, and now we move on to Jennifer. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Grace. It was indeed an inspirational opening session for the workshop. And greetings to all of your excellencies, dear participants. I'm very pleasure to meet all of you virtually and also moderate this session. I moved to Istanbul just a month ago from New York, where I used to work for UNDP headquarters and the UN Secretariat. So again, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm sure we will get to work together in the coming years. This session will discuss how South-South investment have contributed to the implementation of the SDGs and national priorities in the Arab region by sharing country and regional examples. In doing so, we have a number of terrific speakers and experts who will focus on the main regional and interregional economic cooperation institutions and identify interregional and regional efforts, highlighting various models of integration and means of implementation, and also to help us distill and unpack some of the critical issues. We are very fortunate to have, as I said, expert speakers from a wide range of fields and institutional affiliations, so who will bring together global, regional, and country level perspectives, share current mechanisms, and also provide insights into various policy and legal issues, management of diverse flows, resource flows, and also priorities for investment. Last but not least, we'll also have UN colleagues sharing, reflecting on the role of the UN system and some of the internal efforts to ensure policy.
والجهود المبذولة من أجل تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. قبل بداية
If I may, As you heard, the language interpretation is available from English to Arabic and Arabic to English. Please note that the chat box function is only the way for the audience to communicate and share their experiences or questions with the panelists. We have colleagues compiling all the comments and questions. So therefore, we really encourage all the participants to use the chat function to raise questions, because live questions will not be taken. We also kindly request all the participants to mute your microphones and also switch off your cameras, except for the speakers. They're more than welcome to keep their cameras on. A few more announcements. This event is being recorded and will be shared through the South-South Galaxy online platform. And as to the speakers, each speaker will have 7 to 8 minutes maximum. So therefore, we kindly request all the speakers to observe this time limit so that we have sufficient time at the end of the presentations to have some meaningful discussions and then and delve deeper into some of those concrete ideas. Since the discussions and the outcomes will inform a research agenda led by the South-South global thinkers, I will also be asking or posing rather some questions to each speaker, so that so we have the conversations and the presentations more focused and more concrete. With that, I'm happy to invite our first speaker, Dr. Anita Aguado, who is an Economic Affairs Officer in the Office of the Secretary General of UN Conference on Trade and Development. Dr. Anita has been working for the UN UNCTAD for over 12 years. She has extensive experience in cross-cutting economic, trade, and environmental issues. And she has worked in transnational cooperation, NGOs, and academic institutions, and also intergovernmental organizations in the areas of mining and oil economic issues, environmental issues, trade, and climate change. Dr. Anita, I'm going to kick off the first session with 2 questions for you. From your perspective, what are the current global trends in South-South investments and trade? What has been the impact of COVID-19 on those 2 areas? What are some of the main obstacles to increase flows of investments between developing countries? What are some of the opportunities? Over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to this important event. And I will try to focus on the 2 questions as much as I can in the 8 or 7 minutes given to me. Well, the COVID-19 crisis has hit hard both developed and developing countries. The economic consequences of the crisis has been enormous. The pandemic and the crisis mitigation measures have interrupted the international flows of goods, services, investment, finance, transport, and the movement of people. A series of uncoordinated measures costed the global trade about $6 trillion, representing a drop of 20%, and the global combined GDP is projected to contract by 4.3% in 2020. In addition, international tourist numbers are expected to decline about 70%, and remittances flows, which is one of the external source of financing for developing countries, is expected to decline by 28% in the present year. Millions of jobs have been already lost and millions of livelihoods are at risk. It is estimated that an additional 130 million people would be living in extreme poverty. For developing countries, UNCTAD estimates a 2.1% contraction of their combined GDP in 2020. Developing countries' trade was largely impacted as oil prices fell almost 50% in the first quarters of 2020. The widespread decline in international trade has been
هناك مشكلات بين الدول النامية وفروقات كثيرة في الاقتصاد بين الدول النامية والدول المتقدمة.
For example, in the second quarter of 2020, and a decline of 8% in July 2020. At the regional level, trade in certain regions, such as East Asia, appears to have fared relatively better than in other regions. On the other hand, the sharpest decline has been for the West and South Asia region, where imports have dropped more than 35% and export by 41%. The fall in trade remains significant in more regions. In terms of investment, the pandemic has had a negative impact in foreign investment, direct investment. At the global level, FDI flows are forecast to decrease by up to 40% in comparison to their levels in 2019. This would bring FDI to below $1 trillion for the first time since 2005. FDI into developing countries, which is a more stable modality of external financing for these countries, is expected to contract by 40% in 2020 compared to these levels in 2019. The pandemic has led to the delay of implementation of ongoing investment projects and the shelving of new projects, as well as the drying up of foreign affiliate earnings. I would like to quickly highlight what this would imply for the implementation of the SDGs. The COVID-19 crisis threatened, of course, to further derail the timely implementation of the 2030 Agenda, in particular in the Global South. It is obvious that the health crisis response and mitigation measures will divert resources away from the efforts of countries to achieve the goals. 5 years into the implementation period and before the onset of the health crisis, UNCTAD estimated that investment in key areas remained inadequate. In 2014, indeed, UNCTAD evaluated investment requirements for the goals as an annual investment gap in developing countries of 2.5 trillion. In the last 4 years, from 2015 to 2019, the number of announced projects for developing countries increased substantially, but this is not sufficient to implement the goals in line and view of the current health crisis. As regard to the second question on the opportunities, challenges, and possibilities to spur and to stimulate investment flows and trade among developing countries, it is important to highlight that trade in the South offers several economic opportunities, as South exports are faster than world export. The value of South-South trade increases very quickly in the last 19 years. In 2019, over 26% of the world trade was conducted among developing countries. South-South trade is significant not only because of its rapid growth and quantitative terms, but also of its qualitative contribution to creating greater opportunities for economic diversification and resilience. South-South trade tends to foster non-traditional export, including higher value added and technology-intensive manufactured goods. For example, in 2016 to 2018, nearly 50% of South-South exports were on average composite of high technology and medium technology manufacturers, such as transport equipment and machinery. In the area of investment, it is obvious that investment in the South is relevant, in particular to support building productive capacity and structural transformation. A strategic engagement with South-South value chain is needed also to drive upgrading and diversification. Developing countries therefore need to strengthen partnerships across regions in order to stimulate trade and investment cooperation. Policy responses in developing countries needs to be geared towards boosting both domestic and foreign investment, as well as better exploiting the linkages between these types of investment in order to maximize their development impact. Cooperation at the regional level among developing countries plays an instrumental role, particularly in investment policy coordination and harmonization. UNCTAD proposes guiding principles for investment policies for sustainable development, including, for example, balancing liberalization with regulation and balancing a push for private investment and public investment. In the area of trade, recent policy uncertainties due to trade tensions and the impasses in the multilateral process make it even more important to explore all forms of cooperation, particularly on a South-South scale. In this regard, the global system of trade preferences among developing countries, the GSDP, as a framework for preferential tariff reduction and other measures of cooperation to stimulate trade between developing countries, offers several opportunities to promote economic growth and development by capitalizing on South-South trade. The GSDP membership extends to 43 developing countries, one sub-regional group, as well as 7 least developed countries. Trade cooperation under the GSDP could thus bring about significant commercial and trade gains for the South. To conclude, I would like to highlight the importance of strengthening South-South trade cooperation, including under the GSDP, as the outcome of the BAPA Plus 40 calls for. In this regard, UNCTAD 15, which is going to take place in 2021, will of course provide an excellent opportunity for the revitalization of the GSDP as a mechanism to stimulate South-South trade and as an effective mechanism for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anita. I think you are within the 8 minutes time frame, so we really appreciate you setting an example. And thanks also for giving us some data, some facts to back up some of your responses. And it's also good to hear some of those opportunities and entry points you have highlighted, including UNCTAD 15, and also the opportunity around UNCTAD's promotion of certain guiding principles. So without going into further summarizing some of the key points, now we'll go into the regional perspectives. To kick off the conversation, I'd like to invite Ms. Rula Majdlani, who is the Director of the Sustainable Development and Productivity Division of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. If I may introduce, just for introduction, Ms. Majdlani has also served as the ESCWA's acting Deputy Executive Secretary for several months, and also previously she has served as the Human Settlements Officer as also the Chief of the Technical Cooperation Section. She has several publications to her credit on green economy, integrated management of water resources, and housing and sustainable cities. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon from Beirut, and it's really nice to see a number of friends and familiar faces. Mr. Chair, Mr. Moderator, would you like me
Yes, I'm going to come to you with 2 questions. From your ESCWA's point of view, could you highlight some of the regional mechanisms that exist in the Arab region that are facilitating regional integration and South-South investment? What are the current opportunities and challenges? And what important mechanisms will ESCWA utilize in ensuring policy coherence across UN agencies in the Arab region when it comes to facilitating South-South cooperation and investments during and post COVID-19 economic impacts? Over to you.
Thank you. Let me build on what Dr. Khalid and my friend Adel have mentioned about the existence of a number of initiatives. This is a region, in spite of its challenges and its dire challenges and a number of problems it faces, this is a region where there have been a lot of effort for regional integration and regional cooperation. Let me name, for example, in addition to the established League of Arab States, the GCC, the Maghreb Union, through the League of Arab States, through the ESCWA, the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, we do have a number of intergovernmental processes that have led to very concrete initiatives on the ground. For example, we have worked collaboratively on a water security strategy. We've worked collaboratively on an energy security and looking, for example, at the energy vulnerability, not just the traditional way of looking at oil-rich versus oil-poor countries, but more in every respect. And unless there is a serious effort to address the question of sustainability, all countries are actually vulnerable in terms of their energy resources. We've worked together on a food security strategy that really relies on regional cooperation, especially with different economic endowment, but environmental endowment, water endowment in the region, and the possibility for working through better trade facilitation. So there are these intergovernmental processes that have, at a technical level at least, have produced concrete initiatives on the ground. There are also multi-stakeholder fora, for example, the Arab Forum on Sustainable Development, which is one which every regional commission hosts on an annual basis to look at what progress is being made towards the SDGs and looking collaboratively with it's a multi-stakeholder forum, so it involves government agencies, line ministries, but also civil society members and the United Nations family to look at how are we getting, how are we progressing on implementing the SDGs through an integrated lens and identifying the regional specificity so that at the global level you can really match it and discuss it with through an inter-regional comparative lens, but also learning from each other as countries and as different agencies. And of course, there is the interagency collaboration, what we have as the issue-based coalition, which is a regional collaborative platform that has allowed us to learn from each other, compare, but also to pool resources so that we can scale up our efforts, maximize the benefits, and also build policy coherence. Now, building policy coherence is a very important dimension or one of the clear benefits of South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. Not just from country to country, but also from different, across the sectors and across the different stakeholders. So on that, for example, we have worked on a water governance agenda, we have worked on an SDG, of course, tracking the SDGs and building capacity on climate change and so that we can enhance action from the regional action for climate action. So these are, of course, the benefits, and the clarity of message is, of course, very important, not just for learning from translating the global agenda in a regional context, but at the time of negotiation, putting the priorities of this region to the global level. Showing, for example, when we speak of climate change, that we do have definitely an adaptation story that we need to bring forward. Mitigation is very important, and we've been looking at co-benefits of adaptation and mitigation. These are some of the examples where a learning process, a collaborative platform have served through an intergovernmental process, but also multi-stakeholder process. Where are the challenges? Of course, with COVID-19, maybe some of these developmental issues, but also the green or the climate issues have taken, maybe in the beginning of the pandemic, have taken a backstage, and there was more emphasis on looking at the crisis at the.
إذن علينا أن نركز على أزمة الجائحة 19 وكذلك الاهتمام بالمساعدات الإنسانية والاهتمام بالتنمية في دول الجنوب وبلدان الجنوب. هذه هي إحدى التحديات التي نواجهها. وكذلك نتعامل مع جائحة 19 قبلها وخلالها وما بعدها.
Especially in its policy briefs series, where we've taken a snapshot at the different impact of COVID-19 on.
وما هو الأثر الذي تركته COVID-19 هذه الجائحة على بلدان الجنوب.
And looking how countries
وكيف نتعلم من بعضنا البعض خلال هذه الجائحة، وتناول ومعالجة هذه الجائحة من أجل إعادة بناء مدننا الخضراء. أما بالنسبة للتمويل والاستثمار، هناك تحديات نواجهها في مجال الاستثمار والتمويل. كما تعلمون، لا نزال نعاني في مجال الاستثمار والتمويل، وكذلك بالنسبة للتمويل الأخضر والتمويل فيما يتعلق بالمناخ والتغير المناخي. وكذلك التحديات التي نواجهها في مجال التغير المناخي، وخصوصا في ظل هذه الجائحة. نحن بحاجة إلى التأقلم وتقليل الآثار التي تسببها هذه الجائحة.
Grant finance that exceeds grant finance by a factor of 10, where, and this is very
أيضاً
puts at a disadvantage these developed countries.
هناك مشكلات كثيرة تعاني منها الدول النامية في ظل هذه الجائحة، جائحة كوفيد-19 وتفشي الجائحة. ثمة تحديات أخرى تواجهنا من أجل تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة.
And conflict. A number of our countries, as you all know, are under conflict, and so the flow for development and the flow of finance.
علينا أن نعنى بالتمويل والاستثمار والتنمية وحل مشكلات كذلك المناخ. الإسكوا تقوم بالعديد من الأعمال، والتحديات التي نواجهها في الإسكوا وهي تعيق أعمالنا في الإسكوا. نحن بحاجة إلى بيئة ممكنة وتعطينا التمكين والتغلب على البيروقراطية في الإسكوا. نحن بحاجة إلى الكثير من التغلب على البيروقراطية في الإسكوا.
We need a better mood of exchange and cooperation.
نحتاج إلى تبادل البيانات واستخدام البيانات بشكل أفضل، وأيضا نحتاج إلى الاستثمارات في بلدان الجنوب وإسهامها في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة والأولويات الوطنية في البلدان العربية، وتبادل التجارب لكل دولة، والتعاون الإقليمي أيضا. كذلك يجب أن نهتم في التمويل وتحديد الآليات للاستثمارات بين بلدان الجنوب، ويجب أن نحدد ما هي احتياجاتنا في التمويل وللتغلب على التحديات التي تواجهنا في الإسكوا. كذلك علينا أن نتعاون مع جامعة الدول العربية أيضا. كيف نقوم بالتمويل في مجال المناخ والتغير المناخي والأعمال المناخية؟ وهذه قضية مهمة جدا، العمل المناخي، وهو الهدف 13 من أهداف التنمية المستدامة، العمل المناخي والاستثمار في مجال العمل المناخي والتغير المناخي والتمويل في هذا المجال. يجب أن نبحث عن طرائق أفضل في مجال التمويل والشراكات بين القطاعين العام والخاص في مجال التمويل أيضا.
Another area that supports the better financing that ESCWA is working on is to look
الإسكوا أيضا لديها طرائق أفضل للتمويل. لدينا سياسات فيما يتعلق ببناء البيانات.
We have developed a regional knowledge hub with FAO, with the League of Arab States, and a number of UN agencies with an open data portal that allows the countries to better understand where are our needs and what is the impact based on a number of scenarios of climate change on the economy, on agriculture, on food, on youth, on coastal areas, to look at all these differences. So that science policy interface.
Sorry to interrupt, Sola, if you don't mind wrapping it up, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me conclude then with two key initiatives where we are working through South-South and the triangular cooperation with the Islamic Development Bank. In terms of
إذن علينا أن نعنى بالتعاون الثلاثي والتعاون الجنوب-جنوب.
Doing a business model so that we can really upscale, because for it to remain at a pilot scale, this is really we will not achieve. It really needs to be upscaled, and with that triangular process where countries.
إذن علينا أن نعنى بهذه العملية الثلاثية والتعاون الثلاثي.
We are working on a climate and
أيضا لدينا أعمال كثيرة تعنى بالمناخ والتعاون الثلاثي مع المدينين والدائنين من أجل التعاون بين بلدان الجنوب-جنوب، وكذلك التعاون الثلاثي أيضا.
I am sorry for taking a lot of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا للمتابعة والبيانات والمعلومات والدروس المستفادة التي استفدنا من الإسكوا والإصلاحات التي قمتم بها في الإسكوا والتعاونيات التي تقومون بها في الإسكوا، والحاجة إلى وضع سياسات لتمكين تقديم المساعدات والاستثمارات لدول الجنوب والتعاون الثلاثي.
We are requesting those that want to engage or pose questions to use the Q&A function because we have had some technical difficulties.
هناك بعض المشكلات الفنية التي تواجهنا. والآن أدعو المتحدث الآخر دكتور بهجت أبو النصر من دائرة من جامعة الدول العربية، وعمل مستشارا أيضا في الأبحاث، وهو باحث أيضا في وزارة الاقتصاد المصرية والتجارة الخارجية، وعمل أيضا في غرفة التجارة والصناعة، وقام بالعديد من الوظائف والمهام لتطوير الصادرات في مصر، وهو أيضا يعنى بالأبحاث كذلك. فليتفضل دكتور نصر.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, I'd like to share my presentation, please.
سأتحدث لكم الآن. سأعرض
I'd like to share my presentation, please.
أرجو عرض الشرائح التي قدمتها.
شكرا جزيلا. بما ان اغلب الحضور يتحدث العربيه فانا فضلت ان انا اقدم البرزنتيشن باللغه العربيه. انا كان عامل برزنتيشن لوقت كان يحتاج تقريبا حوالي نص ساعه.
We need time. Can you hear English?
Yes, we can hear English. Yes.
Okay, great.
عامل برزنتيشن نص ساعه ولكن بما ان الوقت
time limitation, due to that I will sum up.
العرض يعني في مشكلة تقنية هنا. في مشكلة تقنية بعد إذنك. طيب أنا هتكلم بدون العرض عشان في مشكلة تقنية موجودة ما بيقلبش. أوكي. أوكي. اوكي انا هبدا على طول بدون البرزنتيشن عشان واضح ان في مشكله تقنيه. بقول ما بيتحركش معايا البرزنتيشن.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you very much for your flexibility. Please go ahead.
أنا يمكن كنت بتكلم عن أهداف التنمية المستدامة. أنا شايف إن في جميع أهداف التنمية المستدامة الاستثمار هو عامل أساسي في تنفيذ هذه الأهداف، ولكن أنا عايز معلش لا تدوني فرصة إن أنا أقلب بسرعة عشان الوقت. اديني فرصة التغيير من عندي بعد إذنكم. I'd like to play my presentation please. فالاهداف دي كلها هي اهداف تحتاج الاستثمار، ولكن بتحديد الخمس اهداف اللي انا قريتهم شايف انهم ذات اهميه اكبر. لا مش هينفع كده. I'd like to play presentation from yes. لو جينا شفنا اهداف التنميه المستدامه هنلاقي في اشكاليه في كافه الدول العربيه. لو شفنا العرض اللي امامنا بيوضح عدم استدامه النمو، دي الشكل الاولاني. الشكل الثاني بيوريني ارتفاع معدل البطاله في الدول العربيه. لو رجعت للشكل اللي بعده اللي هو السلايد اللي بعده على طول هلاقي في اشكاليه موجوده في مستوى الفقر في المنطقه العربيه، سواء فقر متعدد الابعاد او حتى الفقر اللي هو خاص بالخط الفقر الوطني. لو في ظل هذه الظروف فكان من الضروري ان يكون هناك حجم استثمارات بشكل كبير. انا بتكلم بدون برزنتيشن عشان العرض مش شغال معايا. هلاقي ان حجم الاستثمار في المنطقه العربيه كان محدود رغم ما تملكه المنطقه العربيه من امكانيات عاليه كبيره جدا، سواء استثمار نسبه الاستثمار للناتج او حجم الاستثمار الاجنبي المباشر او حتى الاستثمارات العربيه البينيه. لو شفنا الدول العربيه هنلاقي يمكن هم 4 دول عربيه اللي بتتلقى استثمارات بشكل معقول، والباقي هي استثماراتها بشكل محدود جدا. لو انتقلت بقى في ظل هذا الوضع المتدني للاستثمارات قامت الدول العربيه بمجموعه من الجهود. جهود على 4 محاور اساسيه من اجل خلق بيئه مثيره للاستثمارات في المنطقه العربيه. يمكن الاول هو مرتبط بالتكامل الاقليمي وهو منطقه التجاره الحره. لدينا في المنطقه منطقه تجاره حره من عام 2005، ولكن السنتين الاخرتين حصل تطور نوعي في منطقه التجاره الحره. التطور النوعي تمثل في ان اصبح عندنا تطوير تشريع المنطقه من خلال اضافه 4 مناحي اساسيه خاصه بالتي بي تي والاس بي اس والملكيه الفكريه وتسهيل التجاره. عندي بقى هناك عندنا اليه للشفافيه في المنطقه، اصبح عندنا اليه لالتزام الدول بمقررات المجلس الاقتصادي والاجتماعي، بالاضافه الى هناك اتفاق للتعاون الجمركي تم توقيعه عليه من قبل 6 دول عربيه، وبالتالي هذا الاتفاق مع دخوله حيز النفاذ بيخلق بيئه مثيره جدا للاستثمار في المنطقه العربيه. الامر الجديد في المنطقه وهو موضوع قبول شهاده منشأ الكترونيه. يمكن حاولنا منذ سنوات من اجل موضوع قبول شهاده منشأ الكترونيه، ولكن كنا لم نحقق المرجو، ولكن كوفيد 19 كانت بالنسبه لنا يعني تعتبر شيء ايجابي انه يساعد على قبول شهاده المنشأ الالكترونيه من الدول الاعضاء. ده محور اول عملت عليه الجامعه، وهو محور من هدفه اساسا هو خلق بيئه مش بس للنمو وزياده حجم التجاره البينيه، ولكن من اجل جذب الاستثمارات الاجنبيه او حتى الاستثمارات من داخل المنطقه العربيه. المحور الثاني اللي اشتغلنا عليه هو اتفاقيه موحده لاستثمار رؤوس الاموال العربيه. لدينا اتفاقيه استثمار موحده من عام 81. هذه الاتفاقيه تم تطويرها في عام 2012. وهناك اتفاقيه جديده. هذه الاتفاقيه اعطت مزايا كبيره جدا للمستثمر العربي، اعطت مزايا كبيره جدا لضمان استثمارات المستثمر العربي، وبالتالي كانت تعتبر احد المخارج من اجل او احد الاليات من اجل خلق بيئه ملائمه امواتيه للاستثمار في المنطقه العربيه. رغم هذا الامر ارتأت الدول العربيه ان حتى الاتفاقيه بعد تعديلها هناك حاجه لاتفاق جديد، وهذا ما يتم في أروقة الجامعه حاليا، حيث يتم اعداد اتفاقيه جديده للاستثمار من اجل ان تاخذ التطورات الموجوده في الساحه الدوليه. الامر الثالث اللي عملت عليه الجامعه وهو تم اعداد اتفاقيه لتحرير تجاره الخدمات بين الدول العربيه. هذه الاتفاقيه دخلت حيز النفاذ اعتبارا من اكتوبر 2019. هذه الاتفاقيه طبعا ان كان يرى البعض ان الهدف الاساسي منها هو تحرير تجاره الخدمات، ولكن بالطبع ستنعكس على تجارة السلع، ومن ثم تخلق بيئة معتدلة للاستثمار. حتى لو شفنا اللي هو الشكل التوريدي السلس هيبقى موجود جدا بشكل زي الاتفاقية، وبالتالي يعتبر أحد العوامل الداعمة من أجل زيادة حجم الاستثمارات في المنطقة العربية. الأمر الرابع واللي عملت عليه الجامعة وهو في إطار التعاون جنوب هو المنتديات. الأمانة العامة عملت على خلق تعاون مع دول الجنوب من خلال إقامة عدد من المنتديات مع عدد من التجمعات الإقليمية والدول ذات الأهمية. فلدينا منتدى عربي صيني، لدينا منتدى عربي هندي، لدينا منتدى مع تركيا، لدينا منتدى مع دول أمريكا الجنوبية. المنتديات هي طبعا هي آلية من أجل زيادة حجم التعاون بين الدول الأعضاء. هي لا تغني عن الاتفاقيات أو الثنائية، ولكنها تعتبر داعمة للاتفاقيات الثنائية. ترتب على هذه المنتديات اللي يتابع الأداء الاقتصادي أو التجارة البينية والاستثمارات البينية بين الدول العربية ودول التجمعات، يلاحظ أنها تطورت بشكل كبير جدا اعتبارا من قيمة هذه المنتديات حتى وقتنا الحالي. وبالتالي هذا يشجعنا على التوجه نحو إعداد مزيد من المنتديات مع الدول العربية. في ضوء هذا أنا بتكلم على كان لدينا تعاون مع عدد من التجمعات الإقليمية من أجل النهوض بمنطقة التجارة الحرة. لدينا تعاون مع الإسكواد، لدينا تعاون مع مؤسسات التمويل العربية، لدينا تعاون مع البنك الإسلامي للتنمية من خلال برنامج ايد فور تريد اللي هو تنفذ بالتعاون مع الجامعة العربية. طيب، الخلاصة من هذه الأمور أنا يمكن برى أن هناك بعض الأمور التي يجب العمل عليها مستقبليا من أجل جذب مزيد من الاستثمارات الأجنبية، من أجل زيادة حجم الاستثمارات حتى من داخل المنطقة العربية. يمكن أهم الأمور اللي أنا شايف أنها يجب العمل عليها، أول حاجة هو الإسراع في تطوير الإطار التشريعي لمنطقة التجارة الحرة العربية الكبرى. دي النقطة الأولى. النقطة الثانية هو العمل على الانتهاء من اتفاقية الجديدة لاستثمار رؤوس الأموال العربية. أما لو انتقلنا لوضع الخاص ببيئة ومناخ الاستثمار، ففي الواقع هناك جهود كبيرة يجب أن تبذل من أجل تطوير بيئة الاستثمار في المنطقة العربية. فالمراجعة لوضع الدول العربية في مؤشرات بيئة الأعمال يجب أنها تأتي في مراتب متأخرة، وبالتالي يجب العمل على كافة المحاور من أجل تحسين بيئة الاستثمار. ويمكن أن أركز على نقطتين بس أو ثلاثة من أجل الوقت. النقطة الأولى وهي تكاليف تأسيس المشروعات. المنطقة العربية المشكلة اللي فيها أن تكليف تأسيس المشروع في المنطقة العربية أعلى بكثير من دول OECD. يمكن هنلاقي تقريبا تصل المنطقة العربية لحوالي 100 مثل متوسط دخل الفرد. عندنا موضوعات أخرى متعلقة بدخول الكهرباء، خروج المشروعات، تأمين الاستثمار، امور كثيره جدا يمكن انا عرضتها بعجاله في ظل عدم شغل او عدم امكانيه العمل ببرزنتيشن. يمكن دي اهم النقاط اللي انا كنت احب اشير اليها، وشكرا جزيلا.
Jennifer, I think you're muted.
Oh, thank you, Grace. I was thanking Dr. El Nasser for giving us a
أشكر دكتور نصر لذلك لهذا العرض
purview of the League of Arab States, and also highlighting some of those
وأشكره أيضا
of the need for speeding up legislation.
على التشريعات والإسراع في التشريعات، ونشكر جميع الشركاء الذين يشاركوا في هذا التعاون الثلاثي والجنوب جنوب. ننتقل إلى المتحدث الثالث دكتور خالد الخالد من صندوق الكويتي للتنمية. سيد خالد يتفضل. عمل في العديد من الوظائف والمناصب، عمل في صندوق الكويتي وعمل في زامبيا والمالديف ومنغوليا، وعمل في مجال النقل أيضا كخبير في مجال النقل. سيد خالد لديك 3 أسئلة. هل لك أن تخبرنا عن الصندوق الكويتي للتنمية وكيف عمل في المنطقة العربية وفي الاستثمار الجنوبي في بين بلدان الجنوب، وعلى ماذا ركزتم؟ تعطينا أمثلة على بعض التعاون الذي قمتم به في الصندوق الكويتي للتنمية من فضلك. أما بالنسبة للكوفيد 19، جائحة كوفيد 19 وما أثرها على عملكم في الصندوق وفي خصوصا في استثمارات المنطقة في دول الجنوب والمناطق العربية، وما هي الفرص التي فتحتها كوفيد 19 إن كان هناك فرص؟ شكرا يا جينيفر على إتاحة الفرصة لي، وأشكر جميع المتحدثين. الأسئلة الثلاثة هي الإجابة عليها. لدينا آلية إقليمية خلال الجائحة. سوف أقرأها بالعربي.
سروري أن ألتقي بهذا الجمع الكريم الذي يمثل نخبة من القادة والمفكرين في مجال التنمية الدولية.
It's on development investment to discuss about bilateral and multilateral.
الظروف الاستثنائية التي نمر بها بسبب جائحة فيروس كورونا المستجد، والتي تستدعي تضافر جهود للحد من آثارها الصحية والاجتماعية والاقتصادية الكارثية، وخصوصا في دول الجنوب. يتطلب تحقيق التعاون والتكامل بين دول الجنوب العربية سياسات ولوائح تمكينية وإجراءات مناسبة وقابلة للتطبيق، ويمكن أن يؤدي الوصول إلى المعلومات والفهم الواضح للبيئة القانونية والتشريعية بين شركاء التنمية إلى تعزيز التوسع الأمثل في التعاون التنموي بين بلدان الجنوب. كما سيؤدي التقييم الموضوعي والمنهجي حتماً، والذي من المتوقع أن يتم مناقشته خلال ورشة العمل هذه، إلى صياغة وتنفيذ السياسات القائمة على الأدلة العلمية حول تأثير التعاون فيما بين بلدان الجنوب. ويسرني في مداخلتي أن أستعرض الدور الرائد لدولة الكويت في دعم التعاون بين دول الجنوب والتكامل فيما بينها، وكذلك جهودها في دعم الدول النامية للمساهمة في مواجهة تداعيات جائحة فيروس كورونا المستجد في تلك الدول. الزملاء الكرام، تحتفظ دولة الكويت بسجل حافل في مجال تقديم الدعم والمساعدات لدول الجنوب النامية العربية منها وغير العربية، من أجل تنفيذ مشروعات تنموية حيوية في جميع القطاعات الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، وتقديم العون السخي لسكان الدول التي تعاني من آثار الكوارث الطبيعية والإنسانية واللاجئين الذين يعانون من تبعات الحروب والصراعات المسلحة حول العالم والمجتمعات المستضيفة لهم. وقد كان لدولة الكويت السبق في هذا المجال من بين الدول المانحة في الجنوب، ذلك إيمانا منها بضرورة تكامل جهود التنمية بين دول الجنوب، وألا يقتصر الجهد التنموي على تدفق المساعدات التنموية إليها من دول الشمال المتقدمة. ومن أجل تنظيم تدفق مساعدات دولة الكويت لدول الجنوب النامية، قامت حكومة دولة الكويت في عام 1961 بتأسيس الصندوق الكويتي للتنمية الاقتصادية العربية كأولى المؤسسات المالية الرائدة في الشرق الأوسط. وقد بلغ رأس مال الصندوق الكويتي عند نهاية السنة المالية 2019-2020 حوالي 7 مليار دولار أمريكي، بالإضافة إلى احتياطيات مالية فاقت 12 مليار دولار أمريكي لذات الفترة. ويعتبر الصندوق الكويتي هو الذراع اليمنى لحكومة دولة الكويت في تنفيذ مساهماتها في التنمية الدولية ومساعدة دول الجنوب في جهودها للارتقاء بمستويات المعيشة لشعوبها. كما أن الصندوق هو عضو مؤسس في مجموعة التنسيق لمؤسسات التنمية الوطنية والإقليمية التي تم تأسيسها عام 1975، والتي تضم 10 مؤسسات إنمائية وطنية وإقليمية تهدف إلى تنسيق جهود التعاون من أجل التنمية للمؤسسات التي تنضوي تحت هذه المظلة. وهنا أود أن أقدم نبذة مختصرة عن نشاط الصندوق في دول الجنوب النامية، حيث قدم الصندوق حتى نوفمبر 2020 مع مجموعة 990 قرضاً لدول الجنوب النامية بلغت قيمتها الإجمالية حوالي 2 مليار دولار أمريكي، استفادت منها حوالي 107 دولة نامية حول العالم. كما قدم الصندوق 315 منحة ومعونة فنية بقيمة إجمالية بلغت حوالي 1.2 مليار دولار أمريكي، استفادت منها 163 دولة ومؤسسة تنموية. وكذلك قدم الصندوق الكويتي حوالي 2.5 مليار دولار أمريكي كمساهمات في رؤوس أموال مؤسسات تنموية إقليمية ودولية تعنى بدعم مجهودات التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية في دول العالم الثالث، ومنها على وجه الخصوص دول الجنوب النامية. فبالإضافة إلى القروض والمنح التي يقدمها الصندوق، يقوم الصندوق الكويتي كذلك بإدارة منح دولة الكويت المباشرة للدول النامية، والتي تركز غالباً على الجانب الإنساني والإغاثي وتستجيب لاحتياجات مواجهة الكوارث الطبيعية والصحية ونزوح اللاجئين بسبب الحروب والمجاعات وما إلى ذلك. وحتى تاريخه قدمت حكومة دولة الكويت عبر الصندوق الكويتي للتنمية الاقتصادية العربية حوالي 80 منحة صافية غير مستردة للدول النامية في الجنوب، استفادت منها 44 دولة، بلغت قيمتها الإجمالية أكثر من 7.3 مليار دولار أمريكي، صرفت لأغراض إنسانية وإغاثية والحالات الطارئة في هذه الدول. وحول المعايير التي يتبعها الصندوق الكويتي في الموافقة على تمويل المشروعات في بلدان الجنوب، يتبنى الصندوق في سبيل ذلك سياسة مرنة ومنفتحة عند اتخاذ قرارات تمويل المشاريع الحيوية في دول الجنوب النامية وتقديم المساعدات الإنسانية لها، حيث لا يفرق الصندوق بين الدول من حيث تقديم تلك المساعدات لأي اعتبارات غير فنية مثل العرق أو المذهب أو الديانة، وإنما يكون المعيار الوحيد هو مدى مساهمتها في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة وتخفيف المعاناة الإنسانية على المجتمعات المستهدفة. كما يقوم الصندوق الكويتي بتقديم كافة التسهيلات اللازمة لتشجيع دول الجنوب النامية على التقدم بطلبات التمويل، بل ويوفر الصندوق الكويتي منحاً ومساعدات فنية سخية لتمويل إعداد دراسات الجدوى الفنية والاقتصادية والبيئية اللازمة للمشروعات التي ترغب الدول المستفيدة التقدم للصندوق لتمويلها. وبالإضافة إلى ذلك عمل الصندوق الكويتي منذ إنشائه أيضاً على المساهمات في المبادرات الدولية الداعية إلى تخفيف أعباء خدمة الديون على دول الجنوب النامية، حيث ساهم الصندوق الكويتي في المبادرات الأممية لتخفيف أعباء خدمة ديون الدول المثقلة بها، أو ما يعرف بمبادرة الهيبك. فقام الصندوق بإعادة جدول الديون العديد من الدول المؤهلة للاستفادة من هذه المبادرة. وحالياً وكما هو معروف، كان لجائحة فيروس كورونا المستجد أثراً سلبياً كبيراً على الاقتصاد العالمي، ولم تسلم آثارها السلبية أي دولة من الدول المتقدمة والنامية على حد سواء، ومنها دول الجنوب في المنطقة العربية. وفي حين تتوفر لدى الدول المتقدمة الإمكانيات المالية والاقتصادية واللوجستية اللازمة لمجابهة تبعات الجائحة، وجدت الدول النامية نفسها أمام استحقاقات مالية وفنية إضافية لا تقوى على التعامل معها بإمكانياتها الذاتية المحدودة. لذلك أصبح تعزيز التكامل الإقليمي والاستثمار بين بلدان الجنوب في المنطقة العربية أكثر إلحاحاً من أي وقت مضى، لتحقيق أهداف النمو الاقتصادي المنشود للمنطقة على المدى الطويل وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة ومواجهة تداعيات الأزمة الصحية القائمة. واستجابة لهذه الظروف المستجدة وإيمانا من دولة الكويت والصندوق الكويتي بأهمية تضافر وتكامل الجهود بين دول الجنوب النامية، عمل كل من حكومة دولة الكويت والصندوق الكويتي على تقديم الدعم المالي المباشر للدول المتضررة من تداعيات الجائحة من جهة، وتخفيف أعباء ديونها من جهة أخرى، حيث استمر نشاط الصندوق الكويتي في تقديم الدعم للدول النامية بالرغم من الصعوبات التي صاحبت الجائحة. وقد عدل الصندوق الطريقة التي يتبعها في تقييم المشروعات المرشحة للتقييم، وتحول إلى عقد الاجتماعات الافتراضية عبر الاتصال المرئي لتحقيق ذلك. كما شارك الصندوق الكويتي في المبادرة التي أطلقتها مجموعة العشرين في إبريل من العام الحالي لتأجيل سداد أقساط ديون الدول ذات الدخل المنخفض لتمكينها من حشد وتركيز مواردها الذاتية لمواجهة التداعيات الاقتصادية للجائحة. وتبنى الصندوق الخيارات الخاصة بآليات تأجيل مدفوعات خدمة الدين والواردة في مسودة ورقة الشروط المرجعية للمبادرة، وكذلك فترة تأجيل خدمة الديون وشروط إعادة جدولتها. ومن المتوقع أن تستفيد من هذه المبادرة حوالي 60 دولة من دول الجنوب النامية. وإلى جانب ذلك قام الصندوق الكويتي بالتعاون مع مجموعة من الحكومات والهيئات الأممية ومؤسسات المجتمع المدني في تقديم المنح الخالصة للمساهمة في الاستجابة العاجلة للتداعيات الصحية والاجتماعية والاقتصادية للجائحة. تضمنت توفير المستلزمات العلاجية والمعدات الطبية في كل من الجمهورية اللبنانية والمملكة الأردنية الهاشمية والعراق وفلسطين والنازحين في الداخل السوري. وفي الختام أود أن أجدد التأكيد على التزام دولة الكويت ممثلة بالصندوق الكويتي للتنمية الاقتصادية العربية بالاستمرار في نشاطها الداعم لدول الجنوب النامية لتمكينها من تحقيق التنمية المنشودة وتحسين المستوى المعيشي لمواطنيها، وذلك عن طريق تقديم التمويل الإنمائي الميسر للمشاريع التي تساهم في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وتقديم الدعم المالي واللوجستي لمواجهة تبعات الكوارث الطبيعية والإنسانية. كما تلتزم دولة الكويت بالعمل على رفع وتيرة الشراكة مع مؤسسات التنمية الوطنية والإقليمية والدولية من أجل المساهمة في تعزيز العمل التنموي المشترك في دول منطقة الجنوب العربية وغيرها من دول العالم. وأتمنى لورشة العمل هذه التوفيق في التوصل إلى مخرجات وتوصيات عملية تساعد على تعزيز تلك المساهمات التنموية وسبل العمل المشترك للوصول إلى الأهداف المرجوة التي اجتمعنا اليوم من أجلها. شاكرا لكم تفضلكم بحسن الاستماع. Thank you, Zanfa.
Thank you, Mr. Khalid. Thank you for your presentation. I know some participants have had some issues with the English interpretation, but I'm sure majority of the participants, listen to your presentations attentively. We apologize for that. I have one more announcement to make in terms of engaging, in terms of providing your comments and questions. Please, we request you to use the chat box function now instead of the Q&A, because we have had some technical issues with the Q&A function. So we really appreciate your understanding. So we have 6 more speakers to go before the end of the session. We also have to have some 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So therefore, we would kindly appreciate all the remaining speakers to try and finish your interventions within this stipulated time. So with that, now I'm going to invite Dr. Ahmed Ghanim, who is a professor of the Faculty of Economy and Political Science at the Cairo University. Dr. Ahmed has also held, he is also a research fellow at the Economic Research Forum for Arab Countries, Iran and Turkey, as well as at Center for Social and Economic Research in Poland. He also works as a consultant to several international organizations such as the World Bank, WTO, UNCTAD, and UNDP, and the WIPO. With that very brief introduction, Dr. Ahmed, could I ask you 2 questions? Do you think an increased cooperation and South-South investment initiatives in the Arab region benefit from a focus on regional integration with a common vision? In this regard, have countries of the Arab region developed and supported a common vision about the ultimate form of integration and cooperation which they
في التعاون والتكامل عن طريق الاستثمار بين بلدان الجنوب.
Over to you, Dr. Ahmed.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this high-level webinar, and it's my pleasure to be with you. I'll stick to the time, which is 10 minutes. And the answer, there is a simple answer to the questions that have been addressed to me, which is, could increased cooperation and South-South investments initiatives in the Arab region benefit from a focus on regional integration? Definitely the answer is yes. And then would this mean that they have some kind of cooperation to pursue the increased South-South investment? The answer is also yes. But that simple answers hide behind them a number of issues that I would like to raise as a matter of brainstorming, which is the main theme of what we're talking about, and they reflect
مشكلة أخرى.
And the answer, the main issue is whether SDGs
وهل أهداف التنمية المستدامة تم تحقيقها؟
Because this helps us to understand and try to answer the question more in depth than just a simple answer. My feeling, and here I'm talking, I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm talking on an intellectual basis as well as policy-oriented basis. I believe there is a huge gap between the SDGs as they are, with the different goals and the different means to achieve the goals, and what how Arab countries and a lot of other countries, not only Arab countries, aim at enhancing trade and investment. My feeling is that this gap needs to be addressed, and that's the role of international organizations. And then comes the governments, and then come the implementation. The gap arises from what's the relation? If we look at the national plans of the different Arab countries, whether we're talking about the 2030 plan or 2050 plans of the different Arab countries, we'll find that SDGs are here and there, bits and pieces everywhere. The issue of poverty, the issue of water scarcity, the issue of climate change, and so on and so forth. And when we look at the trade and investment aspects in the national plans as well, and then you'll find that most of the Arab countries aim at diversification of their exports, aim at enhancing FDI as well as domestic investment and reaching a certain level, aims at reaching by export a certain percentage, and so on and so forth. But this link that we're looking at, how to link trade and investment to SDGs, remain missing completely from the national plans as well as from the SDGs. The SDGs are very generic, very widely that they fit each country according to its circumstances, but this link on the means are actually missing. Most of the Arab countries look at trade and investment as goals by themselves and not as means. So people talking about enhancing investment and FDI, they will never ever mention the issue of that has been mentioned at the beginning of the presentations, the green investment issues. Most of the investments in the Arab region, and we know, is concentrated in oil and natural gas. And when we talk about other things, then you find maybe in cement, in steel, in heavy industries, but rarely the issues of SDGs are actually taken into consideration in this regard. The same applies for trade. We're talking about diversification of exports. We're talking about different enhancing of different products. But when it comes to linking trade to SDGs, it remains again missing. My feeling is that we need some kind of a conceptual framework, whether it is a bottom-up approach or a top-down approach, but we need to identify the link between SDGs and then translate them into how they can affect, and what I mean by effect, that trade and investment can affect SDGs, and as well as SDGs can affect trade and investment. So the causality issue is again an important issue. And then after identifying how we link those, then issues like answering the questions that were addressed to me, like how can cooperation aim at enhancing aspects like this is actually included. Arab countries still look at trade in a very shallow meaning. They very shortly address the issue of services, very briefly, if none, started to think of how trade can affect environment, how trade can be used as a vehicle out of poverty. Such deep issues are still not there. And that's why we don't find that fruitful results of whatever initiatives are taken. So far, trade remains a mean by itself. Investment, regardless is it affecting environment in a bad way, regardless if it helps to reduce inequality or reduce hunger or poverty, is looked as enhancing FDI or investment in general. So the idea of having trade and investment as a mean should be emphasized. And as I said, it should be a top-down approach on an intellectual level, and then this can be translated into policy. But so far, we have a vacuum on the intellectual level. And again, this is not confined to the Arab region. This is confined to the whole issue of linking trade and investment to the different socioeconomic indicators that we need to achieve in the SDGs. And thank you, and I hope I did not exceed my time.
Thank you very much, Dr.
شكرا دكتور أحمد
for doing that, and thanks again for giving us a good
وشكرا لك على الخطط الوطنية والاستراتيجيات والربط بين التجارة وأهداف التنمية المستدامة. وكذلك أطر العمل المفاهيمية فيما يتعلق بالاستثمار والتجارة والاستثمار المباشر. ننتقل إلى المتحدث التالي، دكتور سعيدي، مدير عام التدريب في مجال الإحصاء في الأردن، وعمل في المعهد العربي للتدريب والإحصاء، وفي مجال وعمل في تونس، وعمل مديراً عاما للدراسات في وزارة التربية والتعليم. لدي 3 أسئلة لك. في المنطقة العربية هناك تحديات في مجال الإحصاء. ما هي الآليات التي تساعد على بناء القدرات في الدول في مجال الإحصاء والسياسات وقياس أهداف التنمية المستدامة والتقدم في مجال تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة؟ وأيضاً ما هي الخطة الاستراتيجية لمعهدكم في 2020 إلى 2024، وكيف تركز على الاستثمار في بلدان الجنوب وخصوصاً فيما بعد جائحة كوفيد-19؟
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا جزيلا. اسمحوا لي أولا أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل إلى
thank very much indeed the organizers of this workshop for participating in this important regional workshop. Thanks for thinking about statistics and this importance of this workshop. Can you hear the English translation, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. Without statistical reports, we cannot achieve, we cannot study, or we cannot solve issues or affairs or social issues. Therefore, to answer your question, I would like to prepare. We are following SDGs. There is lack in some indicators of statistics. There is a great number of indicators in the UN. There are indicators that there is need for raw material in order to have performance indicators and to prepare statistical reports. Also, COVID-19 showed lots of shortages and problems in statistics, not only in the Arab region, but all over the world. Because there is a need for speedy response to measure lots of issues on the environment and the society. And there are some poor countries who could not respond and they did not have statistical data. At the Arab region level, there are challenges, particularly through COVID-19 and the problems in the Arab region. There are technical problems, financial challenges, legal and legislative challenges that we encounter in the Arab region. The Arab statistical systems in all Arab countries, there are 4 systems. Some of them are developed statistical systems. There is another issue, which is depending on the resources available. If there is the resources or the support, then we can have indicators and statistical reports. Therefore, it's difficult to have statistical reports without finance or without data. In the Arab region, there are statistical systems which are not unified, and the statistical production is not enough due to wars and due to political problems. And due to non-following of international statistical standards. To answer your question directly, I believe that due to such challenges, we have 4 mechanisms. I lost the sound. I can't hear the speaker. I'm sorry, I can't hear the speaker, therefore I can't translate. Maybe he's not using the mic. Could you please ask him to use the mic?
Dr. Saide, could you switch on the mic? You're muted. If you can unmute yourself, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
What can I do now? I summarize or I continue?
Al-Astamir?
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll give you extra 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you.
I will try to sum up. There are challenges in the Arab region for statistical systems. These challenges are technical, legal, systemic, human resources, human capital, differences at levels of developed systems. There are 4 main parts. First, statistical systems which are developed. in line with international standards. There are systems with limited sources. There is a need for finance. Without finance, these systems will not be able to give indicators in statistics. These statistical systems are not connected due to political and security problems. Therefore, to answer the question, we can overcome such challenges in 4 methods. First, the legislation dimension or the legal dimension to cope with the developments in statistics and technology, particularly in the new developed technologies and the statistical data, the big data, the geographic satellites, and the spatial data, and the geospatial data.
الاتجاه حتى تؤثر بشكل أساسي العمل الإحصائي في المنطقة العربية. هناك مستوى ثاني كذلك أو آلية ثانية يمكن أن تساعد على توفير دعم فني للأجهزة أو خليني أقول للمنظومات الإحصائية العربية، وهي آلية يعني معروفة جدا في الوسط في المجتمع الإحصائي، وتتعلق بإعداد الاستراتيجية الوطنية لتطوير الإحصائيات الرسمية، وهي آلية متفق عليها تقريبا، واستراتيجية عادة ما تترجم نقاط قوة ونقاط ضعف النظام الإحصائي الوطني، الأولويات التي يجب الاشتغال عليها وكيفية إنجاز هذه الأولويات حتى تنوفر الإحصائيات الضرورية لمتخذي القرار ومختلف المستخدمين في هذا الإطار. هذه الاستراتيجية تعد كذلك من أهم الآليات للاستجابة قدر الإمكان إلى الحاجيات المتزايدة من الإحصائيات، خاصة ما تحتاجه أجندة 2030، ما تحتاجه كذلك التنمية على الصعيد الوطني، وكذلك تحديد الأولويات للمساهمة في إعداد، في تنفيذ، في متابعة وتقييم السياسات التنموية. كذلك هذه الاستراتيجية على أهميتها تتضمن جانب كبير لدعم القدرات في المجال الإحصائي. وربما نقطة القوة لهذه الاستراتيجية التي تشرف عليها على الصعيد الدولي مبادرة باريس 21 وتساعد الدول كذلك في إنجازها. هذه الاستراتيجية تجمع، يعني هي إطار تجمع المنتج المعلومة الإحصائية، مستخدم المعلومة الإحصائية، وتكون فرصة للنقاش وتحديد الأولويات وسد الفجوات في المجال الإحصائي. جانب ثالث في وهو مهم جدا وربما موضوع هذه الورشة هو آلية التنسيق والتعاون والتكامل، سواء كان ذلك داخل المنظومة الوطنية الإحصائية يعني داخل الوطن، أو بين البلدان العربية في محيطنا العربي، أو بين كذلك المنظمات الإقليمية والمنظمات الدولية التي تشتغل في فضائنا العربي. هذه آلية تعد ناجعة لو تم ربما تكاتف الجهود وتوحيد الإمكانيات الموضوعة على ذمة كل فاعل في المجال الإحصائي، حتى نتجاوز الإشكاليات والنقائص الموجودة على مستوى الأنظمة الإحصائية العربية. كذلك من خلال هذه الآلية يمكن الاستفادة وتقاسم الخبرات والخبرات الناجحة أساساً من بلد عربي إلى آخر، يعني من بلد عربي إلى آخر. بالنسبة للمعهد العربي للتدريب والبحوث الإحصائية، هذا هو لب العمل الذي نشتغل عليه، حيث نركز بالأساس على التعاون بين البلدان العربية.
Dr. Saidi, if I may interrupt you, if you can wrap it up, that would be helpful. You can always come back during the Q&A session to provide further information, if that's okay with you.
Sorry, I don't understand.
No, if you can wrap up your presentation, you would appreciate it. You can always come back.
يرجى أن تنهي الحديث ثم بعد ذلك نأتي إلى السؤال والجواب. يمكنك أن تنهي العرض التقديمي.
اوكي يعني بشكل سريع اود الاشاره الى الاليه اخيره وهي المتعلقه بالتمويل بالنسبه للاجهزه العربيه. اذا سامر بسرعه الى استراتيجيه المعهد العربي للتدريب والبحوث الاحصائيه. فقد انبنت استراتيجيه المعهد بالاساس على حاجيات المنظومات الوطنيه للاحصاء في مجال دعم قدراتها في كل المجالات الاحصائيه، ومنها على سبيل المثال احصائيات الاستثمار. احصائيات الاستثمار هي بالنسبه للاجهزه الاحصائيه هي عاده تعتمد على المصادر الاداريه، وفي هذا المجال يعني تحتوي خطه المعهد العربي للتدريب والبحوث الاحصائيه على برمجه العديد من الدورات التدريبيه حول الارتقاء بهذه المصادر وتحسين جودتها واستغلالها والاستغلال ما تتيحه التقنيات الجديدة من حيث تبادل المعلومات. هذه فرصة كذلك خليني أختم بالإشارة إلى أن المعهد العربي للتدريب والبحوث الإحصائية يشتغل على 22 دولة عربية في مجال دعم القدرات في كل المجالات.
And build capacities in 22 Arab countries in statistical projects. So if you need any implementation of any statistical projects, you can deal with us. We can assist through our experience.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hedi. I apologize for interrupting your presentation. Just that we have 4 more speakers to go to before we have a short conversation or discussion rather. So again, thank you very much for highlighting the importance of the data and the statistics for informed policy making and also speedy response in the context of COVID. Thanks also for highlighting the key technical, financial, legal, and political challenges with regard to having institutions or data, and also giving us a good overview of your strategic plan. And from UN office side, we would definitely be interested in having a follow-up conversation with you as we plan for the next year. So that concludes the presentations for the regional part. Now we will go to the country perspectives. We have again got some excellent 4 speakers. I know we are running out of time. Hopefully we will be able to listen to them without any interruption. So to kick off the country level perspectives, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Imad Zuhairi, who is the Director General of Palestine International Cooperation Agency under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Prior to his current post, His Excellency has served as the Deputy Head in Charge Affairs of the Permanent Observer Mission of the State of Palestine to the United Nations and other international organizations in Switzerland. As a career diplomat since 1995, he has held several key functions, including as a Director of European Department, Head of the Communication Sections, and the Cabinet of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Excellency, if I can start with 2 questions for you. From your agency side, how have South-South investments contributed to the implementation of the SDGs and priorities in the state of Palestine? What are the policies and regulations that you have in place in support of South-South investment? How can the state of Palestine improve its capacities for increased South-South investment? Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And allow me at the beginning to express my most sincere appreciation for all those governments, international organizations, and like-minded agencies who supported
والوكالات التي تدعم القضية الفلسطينية ولتحقيق آمالها. وأتقدم بالشكر الجزيل
to the previous speakers for their valuable input and remarks. You know, the case of Palestine is a bit different from the case of any other country of the South. But despite the continuous occupation, despite the fact that half of the Palestinian people is mainly based in the diaspora, and that we still have no control on our borders, 60% of our resources are controlled, We don't have a national currency yet, and our economy is chronically in a state of dependency, but we were able to realize and participate in the realization of the United Nations 2030 SDGs. My leadership decided to create the Palestinian International Cooperation Agency, and if you allow me in 2 minutes to explain who we are, for you to better understand the role of the Palestinian International Cooperation Agency, because one might be surprised to see a country sitting under occupation, receiving international support and aid, but at the same time is a main player in providing technical assistance and know-how to different countries in the world. We have decided, since we have worked on the upgrading the status of Palestine in the system of the United Nations, and because we sincerely believe that the capital of the state of Palestine is mainly based on human resources that are specialized inside and outside the territories of my country. And since there are lots of countries who supported the two-state solution, let me say, or peace in the region, so we thought that we need to benefit from such available opportunities, mainly our specialized capital, human resources, to play an important role in facing the existing challenges or being part of the opportunities that exist worldwide once we are talking about promoting triangular and South-South cooperation. The Palestinian International Cooperation Agency today is present in more than 36 countries. We mainly depend on our human resources. Our partners from the ISDB, UNOSSC, UNDP, and other relevant governments are playing an important role in supporting the programs and the activities of the agency. Still, there are different challenges that we face, but until now we were able to place Palestine not only as recipient, but as a provider of know-how and technical assistance. To come back to your question, how South-South investment contributed to the implementation of the SDGs and priorities in the state of Palestine? Well, not much. One of our pillars is to strike the private-public sustainable partnership. We depend a lot on the Palestinian private sector, whether from inside or outside the territories of my country. This partnership from within the state of Palestine, as well from the diaspora communities, is fundamental in delivering the agency's message of inclusive and sustainable development programs. These programs implemented
هذه أيضا البرامج مهمة جدا لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة.
that is related to promoting and enhancing partnerships.
هدف ال17 وهو عقد الشراكات لتحقيق الأهداف هو
has contributed to creating a new employment opportunities and mitigating poverty. It has opened a new door of opportunities to lots of fresh graduates, skilled workers, and practitioners who are willing to improve their professional skills. Investment has contributed to elevating women's empowerment and gender equality initiatives on local level. As both genders benefit from the new opportunities, equal access is a must. PICA has strived to make sure that women as equally as men get their share of participation and representation in all activities and beyond. We thought that COVID-19, despite being a very serious challenge, it could be also an opportunity. So we behaved in a way to transform this challenge into an opportunity where we worked hard and still working very hard to develop our individual and institutional capacities and capabilities. During the battle against COVID-19, improving the health sector has become a necessity of national importance. The South-South investment within the state of Palestine and outside has facilitated the positively resulted in finding better measures to fight the pandemic. The health establishments in Palestine has seen a tremendous impact from this partnership. ICU and PPE equipment have been provided as a result of this investment. And here I would like to thank ISDB, Islamic Development Bank, United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, UNDP, and other like-minded agencies who contributed to developing the individual and the collective capacities during this very serious period. On the policies and regulations that we have in place to support South-South investments, in 2014, the Palestinian government amended the 1998 Investment Encouragement Law, which was designed for enhancing the development efforts through investment. The law offers incentives to dynamic sectors that contributed towards achieving local and global development goals, such as information technology, actually, and the energy section. Moreover, the government has adopted a national plan whose backbone is the UN 2030 SDGs. It is a strategic and national focus that keeps the calibration of the government development oriented. The State of Palestine is proud to champion a national agenda of progressive investment and inclusive development. This has placed us high amongst the countries who are willing to lead by example and do what they can, no matter how simple. In April 2019, the government has put in place a national plan. This plan focuses primarily on several aspects: industrial and agricultural production, gender equality, and combating poverty. Another key part of this plan is supporting startups, small businesses, and incubators. Subsequently, several conferences were held on the matter, and the national businesses and a National Academy for IT outsourcing careers were created early 2020. Well, this tells us a story of genuine and fruitful private-public partnership. We depend a lot on our relations with our private sector, whether inside or outside the state of Palestine. Coming back to the second question, how can the state of Palestine improve its capacity for increased South-South investment? Although we have some regulations that focus on investment towards development, there is still plenty of room for more. Extra efforts have to be exerted to promote a resilient, agile, and contemporary partnership. It is no secret that working together internally, public and private sector together, generates a sustainable source of investment towards achieving the 2030 SDGs. Despite all challenges, we were able to launch and initiate some very important programs with relation to COVID-19 and beyond COVID-19. One of these very important programs is with China, actually. We are going to benefit from the experience of China. We are in the process of realizing one huge project with the ISDB as third partner. This program will be dedicated to strengthen the national capacities of more than 20 countries, members of the Islamic Cooperation Organization. And additionally, we started some programs with the GIZ of Germany, ABC of Brazil, on national level to strengthen the capacities of the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Education when it comes to post-COVID-19 era. Still, we don't know when this will be implemented, but we are on the right track for realizing this very important program. Lately, we have realized a PTP, Palestinian Indian Technopark, a nonprofit entity established with the vision to create national infrastructure, business environment, and culture that will enable knowledge-based and creative enterprises, as well as technology clusters to successfully operate locally, regionally, and globally. The project was funded by the Republic of India. Well, still, there is a lot to be given. There is a lot to be learned from the experiences of other countries from the South. But I strongly believe that PICA with its local, national, and international partners are sparing no efforts towards realizing the United Nations SDGs. One small observation or recommendation, if I may add, when it comes to investment, it's either we speak about foreign investment or we speak about local investment. But there is a need for one platform that is focused on organizing investment funds where capabilities are adapted to needs, or needs are adapted to capabilities in a more organized and adequate manner. It's good to receive, but it's a better feeling when you are capable of providing. The State of Palestine, through the Palestinian International Cooperation Agency, is fully committed to realizing United Nations 2030 SDGs. I'll be very honored, very proud to answer any of the questions. or to take into consideration any constructive and positive remark that falls within the scope of our work and in enhancing triangular and South-South cooperation. I thank you for good listening.
Thank you very much, Excellency Zuhairi, for your interventions and also giving us a good context to the background to the development institution, and also how the SSC investments have contributed locally in terms of capacity development, gender equality, and women's empowerment. And you also highlight some of the policy and regulatory reforms that you have undertaken. So we have 3 more speakers left. Unfortunately, we have only 15 minutes. So we kindly request all the speakers understanding in terms of try and finish this interventions within the allotted time. Unfortunately, we also don't have the time for the Q&A. So therefore, we kindly request all the participants to pose your questions in the chat box for the panelists, and then we will compile the responses and as part of the overall report of the workshop. So with that announcement, I'm very pleased to now invite Mr. Malik Al-Brizar, who is head of the Department of Cooperation with the Arab and OIC institutions, Ministry of Planning and Cooperation from the Kingdom of Jordan. I'm going to go straight into the questions given the time constraints. If you can, could you highlight how have the South-South investments contributed to the implementation of SDGs and national priorities in Jordan? And what regional frameworks have Jordan used or using to engage in South-South investments? Over to you.
شكرا جزيلا على هاي التقدمة.
Thank you for this introduction. To start with, I am pleased to participate in this workshop, which is important because it's a virtual regional workshop through South-South and triangular cooperation. I would like to thank the Kingdom of Bahrain for this workshop and the UNDP and UNOSSC. And I would like to thank all the centers and MENAPAR and UNDP to achieve 2030 SDGs. I know the time allocated is very short. Therefore, I will sum up my paper. However, thanks to all the speakers who came before me, all of them talked about the importance of South-South cooperation to achieve 2030 SDGs. My question is, everybody focused on cooperation, but what about the importance of the shortages, the challenges that we encounter in this cooperation? There are samples and models that were applied and we achieved SDGs and sustainable development, which is a challenge for advanced developed countries and developing as well. The problems are related to financing and the gaps and the stability in the region. Political stability will have impact on South-South cooperation and the increase of trade and investment. If we take Arab regions, it's only 6% of trade in the Arab region. Therefore, there is a lot needed to be worked to increase these indicators and to benefit from bilateral trade. Also, investment has challenges. There are some national challenges and other challenges are regional. Therefore, there is a need for internal reform, such reform to tackle and remedy investment and exchange of expertise between South-South cooperation and countries. And also regionally, there is a need for reform, such as increase of relationships of consultations and cooperation between the countries. In particular, in Jordan, we have cooperation between countries for development and building capacities through inculcating and instilling data, education, further education, research, health. We succeeded in developing the knowledge-based economy. And also, we have MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings, between Jordan and the GCC countries. And due to COVID-19, there are repercussions and consequences. Already we have challenges even before COVID-19. COVID had more impact on all the world. So now there is more importance to these indicators. Indicators were not satisfactory before COVID-19. Jordan, in the beginning of this pandemic, it was a sudden pandemic. People were not prepared, countries were not prepared, especially in the developing countries, particularly in Jordan. We have Syrian refugees and the lack of stability. Jordan believes that we have to change the crisis into opportunity, the challenge into opportunity. We have partnerships within financial institutions regionally, such as Kuwait Fund, Arab Fund, Arab Investment Fund, which I hope that he would be a participant here, because they support countries in South-South cooperation through mechanisms and initiatives such as Jordan is benefiting from such support to help the private sector and to benefit from Singapore opportunity examples, and to benefit from mosques and to provide the support and priorities and to combat and encounter the ramifications of this. Thanks to the Kuwait Fund that supported us in the health sector. Thanks to the Arab Fund for providing finance for private sector during the COVID-19. Jordan, as you know, we cooperate with South countries, with Islamic Bank since its inception in 1975, through an initiative of cooperation, technical cooperation, to provide expertise. There was cooperation with Yemen, cooperation with Somalia in statistics, cooperation with Iraq in consensus. Jordan has expertise in consensus, and also Jordan played a lot of cooperation with the GCC countries, with lots of expertise in excellence in the public administration and public policy in the GCC countries. And also the preparation of commercial zones. We work also with the Islamic Bank, with State of Palestine on the topic of development planning in Palestine, and to take the experience in Jordan about that. In general, Jordan focuses on such issues, despite that we suffer from a series of refugees. We have experience in building partnerships. I confirm and quote also His Majesty's in Sustainable Development Conference, the UN meeting, when he said that there is a need for SDGs and we need to focus on South-South cooperation and to go beyond COVID-19 and to work collectively and globally through building partnerships, bilateral and multilateral partnerships.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. If you don't mind, if you can wrap up your presentation, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malik, for your understanding. We will definitely reach out to you to have access to your full paper. I think you highlight a number of interesting points, including the need for reform, how to turn the crisis into opportunities, and also you name some of those existing funds and other mechanisms that are available to address those issues. So we have two more speakers to go. So now I'm going to invite Ms. Rima Yunus Khatib, who is the Deputy Director, Foreign Affairs Department of Central Bank of Lebanon. And previously, she has also served as the chairperson of the UNDP CEDA Trade and SDG Working Group for Arab States. And she's also been led negotiations in terms of the Lebanon's access to the WTO, and also as a chief negotiator for the liberalization of trade and services among Arab countries in the context of the League of Arab States. Ms. Rima Yunus, I was meant to ask 3 questions, but I'm going to cut down the question if that's okay with you, but I will come back to you to get to your full statement. So briefly, what policies and regulations did Lebanon put in place to better facilitate South-South investments and trade? What are the challenges faced? And what regional frameworks does Lebanon use to engage in South-South investment and trade? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and for your colleagues. It has been a very rewarding intellectually listening to all these excellent presentations. Actually, I will go back to what Dr. Raed said. What we are facing in the region is a dual complacency and living in the past. And in order to change that, I love the way he said that we need a change in dynamics in the way we're thinking. So I will not go over, if you allow me, I will only go into the challenges that we're facing. In Lebanon, all what can go wrong went wrong. So I think that in your agenda, you need to study Lebanon as a case study of how things can go wrong so fast, especially when you postpone things and eventually when more than one crisis hit and you will have the perfect storm. Nevertheless, like some of the colleagues said, that we can find some opportunity in this crisis. We're still waiting to see this opportunity. Unfortunately, after having 4 crises hitting Lebanon, from financial to banking, to social, and to having political bottlenecks, we were faced with the 3rd explosion, and biggest non-nuclear explosion in the world that wiped 1/3 of the city and put thousands of Lebanese without homes, killing more than 200 and injuring more than 6,000, and bringing more and more need for a change in the country that we're still waiting. Tomorrow, we were gonna have an international conference to help Lebanon, but unfortunately, it's only gonna be humanitarian. 2 years ago, we had Friends of Lebanon pledging 11 billion in investment infrastructure, and this was not materialized because of the political bickering and because of the requirements. I apologize, I had the power cut. And this is one of them, electricity power cuts, that this is one of the main problems that we're still facing. So enough with this, let's go back to Dr. Raed. What do we need? First, we need a national policy. I was really upset when hearing that everybody have a national policy for SDGs. We don't. We don't have a national policy. We don't have a Vision 2030. We don't have a national policy linked with the SDG. The problem is that you don't have linkages between your national policy and SDG. We don't have both. So we are really in need of this medium long-term putting these things on paper and having people to commit to it. We've heard about the evidence-based. This concept does not exist currently in the national policy, which is a huge deficit in terms of be able to plan based on evidence. And I think this would be a very important point to add to the agenda. Now, of course, we have a lot of our main strength is the individuals in Lebanon and the human capital and our diaspora. So where are we getting all these investments and all the how we were able to survive against all odds? It's the Lebanese diaspora and the Arab friends of Lebanon and the international community. Now we were grateful for these, but
دول صديقة كثيرة تساعد لبنان. نحن بحاجة إلى التعلم من الأخطاء التي وقعنا بها في الماضي. We feel that we are now, since 2011 and the Syrian crisis, we have been outside our normal path. لقد خرجنا عن المسار الذي هو لنا في لبنان. نحن بحاجة إلى ماذا سيحدث إذن لا نستطيع الموائمة بين السياسة والاقتصاد، رغم أننا نعرف أن السياسة والاقتصاد ترتبط ارتباطا وثيقا مع بعضها البعض. علينا أن نعنى بأهداف التنمية المستدامة. يجب أن أيضا نهتم بالتعاون والتكامل بين الدول. يجب أن تكون لدينا الأسس التي نبني عليها، وإلا فإننا سيكون بنا الصعوبة بمكان أن نقوم بأي تعاون سواء كان في الجنوب أو في الشمال. يجب أن نركز على الأساسيات أولا. أعتقد أن الأمم المتحدة يجب أن تهتم بذلك. أيضا نعود إلى الدكتور رائد. نحن بحاجة إلى behavioral. نحن بحاجة إلى اقتصاد سلوكي. كيف نفكر؟ يجب أن نكون عقلانيين. نحن كعرب يجب أن نكون عقلانيين بطريقتنا. يجب أن يكون لدينا اقتصاد سلوكي وأن نفهم الديناميكيات وكيف يعمل وضع السياسات وكيف نهتم بالاقتصاد السلوكي ووضع السياسة العامة، وأن نهتم بالقضايا الرقمية وقصص النجاح في لبنان، وكيف نعمل في بنك ما يسمى باقتصاد المعرفة، الاهتمام باقتصاد المعرفة وبالبنك المركزي. رغم المشكلات في لبنان ورغم عدم الاستقرار فلدينا مشكلات عسكرية سياسية. علينا أن نعنى بالبنى التحتية من أجل التعاون والمزيد من التعاون. هناك فرص عديدة في مجال التجارة الإلكترونية. يمكن أن نقوم بزيادة التجارة الإلكترونية أو الرقمية. نستطيع أن نبني على ذلك ونقوم بنقل المؤسسات وتحويلها للتفكير في الطريقة الرقمية والتعاون بما يسمى بالتمويل الرقمي والذكاء الصناعي والبيانات الكبرى. نحن بحاجة إلى أجندة وطنية وأجندة إقليمية. هناك بعض الجهود تعمل على السياحة والنقل والطاقة. نحن بحاجة إلى وثيقة تحدد الإقليم وما هي النقاط الهامة للإقليم وتحقيق النفع العام للإقليم. في الأمم المتحدة أنهم يعملون على الصندوق الخاص للتركيز على القضايا البيئية والاجتماعية والآثار. السفير منير قدم تقديما جيد أعجبني. نحن بحاجة إلى مشاريع تعتمد على البنوك. هناك أموال ولكن نحن بحاجة إلى المشاريع المناسبة. نحن بحاجة إلى طريقة إلى مساعدة الدول النامية في المنطقة لكي يكون لدينا مشاريع يمكن أن تعتمد على البنوك، وهذه المشاريع يمكن أن تحقق دخل، والتركيز على المشاريع الصغيرة والمتوسطة التي ترتبط مع SDGs وهي أهداف التنمية المستدامة. أتطلع إلى اليوم الثالث الذي يركز على النقاط الهامة فيما يتعلق بالإلكترونيات والتعاون بين السعودية والإمارات. نحن بحاجة إلى زيادة التجارة والآليات التجارية، وأن يكون لدينا مراكز استراتيجية للأبحاث وما يسمى بالفينتك وهي التقنيات المالية. ومع هذه الجائحة هذه فرصة، قد تكون فرصة رغم أنها محنة. هذه المحنة يمكن أن تتحول إلى منحة عن طريق الاجتماع مع بعضنا البعض والتعاون. شكرا جزيلا لهذه التقدمة وهذه الكلمة. ليس لدينا الوقت للتلخيص. بهذا سيداتي سادتي، سيد أحمد
from the Republic of Djibouti. Prior to that, he also occupies the post of the Deputy Director in charge of the UN agencies, assistance and cooperation in his country. He is also the focal point for South-South cooperation. And prior to that, he has also served as a counselor in the permanent mission of Djibouti in Geneva. Mr. Ahmed Abro, I was meant to ask you 4 questions, but given the time constraints, I'll cut it down to 2, and then hopefully we'll come back to you to get your written statement so that we can reflect your interventions fully in the report of the workshop. So specifically, what are the policy and legal issues that are enabling or hindering your country's participation in South-South investments with other developing countries in the Arab region and beyond? And the second question, what country and regional frameworks does your country use to engage in South-South investment? Over to you, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to thank also all the organizers of this meeting and greet the distinguished representative present in this webinar. Within the framework of the objective of sustainable development of the United Nations,
في أهداف التنمية المستدامة في جيبوتي في العام 2025 لدينا استراتيجية لتعزيز 2015-2019 لدينا تقرير استراتيجية 2020 2024. هناك تحديث للتنمية ولتقليل الفقر، ونحن نعنى بالقضاء على الفقر والقضاء التام على الجوع في جيبوتي من أجل تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. الحكومة تقوم بالبحث عن الكثير من التعاون الدولي لتنويع التمويل والتعاون الدولي والاتفاقيات الثنائية والمتعددة الأطراف. نحن في جمهورية جيبوتي نتعاون مع العديد من الدول في 4 قارات والدول العربية أيضا، ولدينا شراكات كثيرة مع الدول ولدينا اتفاقيات تعاون كثيرة. كذلك نحن على الحدود مع السودان وأثيوبيا والكثير من الدول التي نقوم بالتعاون معها. هذا التعاون من الصعوبة بمكان أن نقوم بتدريب الأطباء. نتعاون مع تونس والمغرب في مجال تدريب الأطباء، والهند وماليزيا. جيبوتي أيضا تهتم بالتعاون الدولي في المشاركة في العديد من المؤتمرات والدبلوماسية والاهتمام بالدبلوماسية الاقتصادية. الدور الدبلوماسي في جيبوتي هو الترويج لجيبوتي وتحسين الاقتصاد في جيبوتي. لدينا الدبلوماسيين في السعودية وقطر والإمارات العربية المتحدة يمثلون جيبوتي، وفي اليمن والمغرب، ويهتمون بعمل علاقات اقتصادية جيدة. التعاون بين الدول العربية ممتاز مع جيبوتي. مع دول الخليج لدينا تعاون كبير. ولدينا شراكات كثيرة مع دول الخليج ودولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة. لدينا مشاريع كثيرة ساهم في تمويلها الأرب فاند، الصندوق النقد العربي، بناء المستشفيات والطرق وشق الطرق في جيبوتي، كذلك بناء السكن. على الرغم من غياب التنسيق الكامل، هناك شخص مسؤول في وزارة الخارجية يقوم بالتنسيق، وهو مسؤول عن عمليات التنسيق الجنوبي بين بلدان الجنوب والتعاون الجنوب-جنوبي. هذا المنسق يعمل في وزارة الخارجية ويقوم بدور التنسيق مع بلدان الخليج وجنوب للتعاون جنوب-جنوب، للتعاون بين بلدان الجنوب. إن التعاون بين بلدان الجنوب في جيبوتي موجود مع الدول العربية. هذا التعاون في بلدان الجنوب. لدينا آلية للتعاون مع بلدان الجنوب بين جيبوتي ودول الجنوب. سيد أحمد حسين أحمد هو مستشار إقليمي للدول العربية. نقوم بالتنسيق مع الدول العربية. أما بالنسبة لكوفيد 19 لجائحة كوفيد 19 فنحن نقوم بمكافحة هذه الجائحة بالتعاون مع تفشي هذه الجائحة. في عام 2020 أدت إلى وقف السفر والتنقل وأثرت على السفريات والسياحة والنقل والطيران. وعلى الرغم من تأثير هذه الجائحة فإن وضع جيبوتي الاقتصادي يبقى إيجابيا. شكرا لكم. نأتي إلى نهاية اليوم وشكرا لكم على تعاونكم. تأخرنا ربع ساعة عن الجدول. أشكر الجميع المتحدثين على هذه المشاركة في الندوة الافتراضية الإقليمية حول التعاون بين دول الجنوب والتعاون الثلاثي بعد جائحة كوفيد-19. شكرا لجميع المتحدثين. شكرا لكم جميعا.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you
All the
tomorrow.
best.
Thank you. Thank you.
نراكم غدا.
Thank you, Zanafa.
Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Grace. See you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, team, for the support.